Today on the show, I have Kate Stalter of Better Money Decisions.
Welcome to the Well Woman Show, where we interview women executives, leaders, and entrepreneurs.
And you're listening to the Well Woman Show,
where motivated women achieve fulfillment and well-being.
You're listening to the Well Woman Show.
Take time for myself by coming to things like Well Woman Drinks.
To be accepting of myself no matter what. Step away from judgment as much as possible.
You're listening to the Well Woman Show.
You're going to be in for a good ride. I don't regret anything. Everything I've ever done, I've learned from it, one way or another, good or bad.
Being a little bit selfish for yourself, put your own oxygen mask on first and then give what's left.
I'm a woman. I would prefer to tell my own story. My story, though it's very personal, is universal.
You're listening to the Well Woman Show. And now your host, Giovanna Rossi.
Hi, Giovanna Rossi here, and welcome to another episode of the Well Woman Show, where I interview women leaders, executives, and entrepreneurs about their lives and their road to becoming and being who they are today. Are you feeling burned out or finding it hard to focus on your goals? Or are you in transition? Well, you're not alone. We all need to activate our superpowers. These are the internal strengths and abilities we all already have but don't use all the time. Superpowers can be cultivated, and they include empathy, love, intuition, courage, and more. As always, this episode is brought to you by Well Woman Life, a global community of women living our best lives. Whether it's your health, relationships, your money, or making an impact in your community and the world, Well Woman Life has you covered. You've made a commitment to not settle, to use your voice, and to live your best life. Well Woman Life offers annual memberships, workshops, and retreats to support you. Check out wellwomanlife.com/Facebook to join our growing community. Now back to the show. Today on the show, I have Kate Stalter of Better Money Decisions. She is a business owner and a real advocate for women understanding their financial situation. And we have a conversation today that I think you're going to find really interesting. On the Well Woman Show, I interview women leaders, executives, and entrepreneurs about their lives. Basically, I interview badass women who are living their best lives. And I want to share with you some of the information from my guests. And we always have a free giveaway. You can go to the notes below the video to find out where to get your free download. Today, our free gift is about retirement savings. And so you definitely don't want to miss this. And we also have a global community of women that you can join if you need support and a safe place to let all your messiness hang out while you're becoming your best self. We've all been there, and nothing is perfect. Nothing is tidy. It's all challenging and messy, and together we overcome these challenges and really live our best lives. So thanks for joining me, and here is Kate Stalter. Welcome, Kate.
Hi, Giovanna. Great to be here.
Yeah, I'm so excited to talk to you. I have the microphone is like so in my face here.
I know, mine too. I know. They're big microphones.
They're very big. Yeah. I'm going to do it like this and see.
Okay.
Anyway, I am just so excited to talk to you. Kate, you are, as we heard in the introduction, the president of Better Money Decisions. And we'll get into sort of all of, what you do. But first, I want to sort of back up and really ask you, who are you in the world today? Who are you in the world?
Right. And doesn't that sort of, in my world, that seems to change whatever day you ask me. But I am really getting a lot of enjoyment these days from being able to help people solve complex problems. And it's taken me a while to get to that point. But I just find that such a real way to contribute, and it's very satisfying. And I'm really enjoying that right now. Now on a more personal level, I'm pretty involved with animal rescue. I have a whole bunch of rescue animals right there in the other room.
Oh, wow.
And I hope my rescue dog does not start barking. But that's just another way that is very important to me to contribute to the community, and it's something I get a lot of satisfaction from.
Oh, I love it. Okay. And tell me, what are you working on right now, and how does it impact women's lives and well-being?
Okay, we are, and when I say we, my company, we're working on launching a book that is actually written by my business partner, Lorraine L. And the book is titled, now I'm going to think about this. It's Morons and Whiz Bangs. That's Bozos, Morons, and Whiz Bangs. That's the title. I know, it's pretty catchy.
Oh, wow.
And that is, to your question about helping women in their lives, it's very much about helping women avoid bad financial decisions, not necessarily of their own making, but just because there's so much horrible information out there right now. So we're really on a mission to correct a lot of that, give people accurate information, and point them to the help that they really need. So that's a big project that's going to be on the horizon for the next few months.
Oh, wow. Okay. So the whole premise of the book is that there's really bad information out there, and this is impacting women because women are making decisions based on this bad information.
Well, yeah. And I can relate a little story that I like to tell. I was up at a little conference up in Santa Fe earlier this year, and there was a gentleman who is a financial planner from a more kind of traditional firm, and he was telling this story that the audience all thought was just incredibly heartwarming, and they were all applauding. And the story was, he had a male client who passed away. He had never talked to the man's wife up until the time the gentleman passed away. And the wife called. She's hysterical. She has no idea if she's financially okay. No clue. And this fellow that I heard speak at the conference was kind of saying, hey, it was great because she and I had a wonderful talk. We became friends. She was able to take her family on a cruise. And everybody's applauding, and I'm still back on, wait a minute, how come you and she never talked? Now, yes, half the onus was on him for not reaching out, but you also have to wonder, why did this lady not reach out to the financial planner as well? Like, why did she not insist that she be included in the conversations? I think, so the onus was on both of them, in my opinion. So in this day and age, it's not enough to just say, hey, I'm delegating this to my husband, I'm delegating this to a son, which is what a lot of women do, or somebody else. I'm kind of riffing on a lot of these things, but this is what I talk about all the time. Women typically outlive their husbands. More and more women are single. I mean, something like 80% of men die married, 80% of women die single. And that's because their male partners tend to die sooner.
Right.
And not to be morbid, but that's a really, really important thing, is why women need to take better control of their own financial situation, because it is your life. It's so much more than what you have in a bank account or what you have in an investment account. It's how you can live. I mean, that was a nice end to his story, that this woman was able to take her entire family on a cruise. That was a nice thing. But, it should not have been a surprise to her that she was able to do that.
Yeah. So I think that has its roots in like a long history of, our family structure and gender, issues in our society and in families, where men are still looked at as, the ones that sort of take care of the finances. And so as we're looking at younger generations of women, are we seeing that change?
It is. I think that more and more couples, maybe the younger boomers, and even some of the older boomers, actually, and certainly the Gen Xers, you do see couples making these decisions together. You do see a lot of women who are single, maybe they're divorced, never married. I mean, in the younger group, we don't see a lot of widows in those younger groups, but women who are taking control and not relying on, a husband, a father, a son, somebody like that to make these decisions for them. I mean, you're absolutely right about sort of the social constructs that have led up to this. We get this question all the time, and we partly laugh, but it's partly a little dispiriting at the same time. People ask us, "Oh, who's managing the money?" Well, we are. And Lorraine and I both came from a firm that was male owned. Neither one of us recalls him ever getting that question, but we do. So it's interesting because I think people don't, and it's usually men who ask us that, by the way, and they often become clients. It's not that they don't, but it's just an interesting. Some of it is very, very subtle. Some of these assumptions that people tend to make, and I agree with you. It's grounded in long time stereotypes, I think.
Yeah, definitely. So what are you doing to kind of dispel some of those myths about how money should be managed and really, educate women and empower women to take charge of their financial situation?
Yeah, our message really does tend to resonate with women because we're a woman-owned firm. You probably are aware of this on some level. If financial services, women are definitely the minority in this field. I mean, the data is anywhere from like 16% to 24%, just depending which survey you read. So definitely we're in the minority. It's certainly been a male-dominated field, and that resonates a lot of times that we do talk to women and they're like, "Hey, I want to work with you." We still hear stories of women who feel like some of the male advisors have talked down to them, and there's some good male advisors out there. I don't want to suggest that they're all bad because they're not by any means. And by the same token, Giovanna, there are women out there who run their businesses differently than the way we do. And we feel like just because you're a woman, I'm sorry, you're still working for Wall Street. You're still what a friend of mine calls a man in a skirt, because you're still doing the same old thing that the guys have done for many years. One thing that we do that we find women really appreciate is, well, first of all, we don't trade single stocks. We don't trade all that risk. That's sort of the old school thing about, dad's stockbroker, call him up and he'll pick a stock for you. No, that's irrelevant for so many reasons. But to stay on track for your question here, what women really appreciate is the fact that we mitigate the risk. We use wide diversification. We're not just going in there saying, "Oh, we think you should own Facebook right now." We don't do any of that kind of thing. Own the world. Women get this intuitively. It's really funny. It's more often the men who will kind of get worried about, well, should we be trying to trade this? And I think the market's going to be doing this. And that's not our approach. We're not going to try to play those games of market timing, trying to guess what might happen with this tax proposal, for example. Who knows? So we're not going to try to be doing a lot of stuff based on that either. So women really appreciate it. It's a very prudent, more conservative approach to the investments. I'm not talking politically conservative. I'm talking, the investment approach. And we find that message really, really is accepted.
Okay. And so I know that the free giveaway today from you is a retirement income guide. So let's talk a little bit about that and why or when should women be seeking financial advice?
Yeah, there's a whole lot out there these days. I'm laughing about it. I get a kick out of this. A lot of people say, "Oh, the millennials are not investing. They're not hiring financial planners." Look, nobody has money in their 20s and 30s, or you're still, maybe you're starting a family. That's where your money's going. You're just starting your career. By the time you're most of our clients, most of them now come to us when they're retired. But if you can start this process when you're maybe 45, 50, 55, the younger you start, the better. Now a person who's maybe 45 or 50 years old, in the bigger cities, we don't quite see this as much here where we live, but in some of the bigger cities, we do see people that have pretty sizable 401ks from jobs they've left, corporate jobs. And if that's your situation, if you left a job, say 5 years ago, and you have some money sitting in an old 401k and you're not sure that it's invested right, definitely seek some help. And look, if you're listening to this and you're, 65, 70 years old and you're in the same position, I would say the same thing. There's nothing wrong with if you're 70, 75, people are living a lot longer these days. More and more people living to 100.
Yeah, right. Yeah, my grandmother lived till 102.
Yeah,
so,
there you go.
So what should a 45 or 50-year-old woman have in place when she's considering coming to see a financial advisor?
Well, the one thing is, and I think people sometimes don't quite know what financial planning is. It's not budgeting. It's a lot more detailed than that. It's a really comprehensive look at, do you have the assets to live the lifestyle that you envision over the next several decades? So what you should have in place, you do need some investable assets. I see people out there, they say, well, we can do a financial plan for you if you have only $15,000. I'm sorry, I think you're going to get ripped off if you do a financial plan and you have $15,000, because you know what that plan is going to show you? You don't have enough money.
Right.
So, don't get ripped off by something like that. I think, if you're have something saved in a 401k, 457, 453, 403b, maybe a pension, again, here where we live, we see a lot of people that have some of these government pensions. And if you know what that might be as you retire, an inheritance, because that wealth transfer from sort of the silent generation or the pre-World War II generation, that's still happening for the boomers. The boomers and the Gen Xers are still receiving inheritances. Now, I get a kick out of this saying, oh, well, the millennials are then going to get a wealth transfer from the boomers. Nonsense. The boomers are going to spend it all. I mean, seriously, the millennials are not, I don't think, going to be receiving as much probably as the boomers did, just because it was a different time.
Yeah.
I mean, that pre-World War II generation, they saved, they scrimped, they lived below their means. You don't see as many people doing that anymore, unfortunately.
Okay. Yeah. So talking about saving and building a retirement account or just saving in general, we have a lot of women who own their own businesses. What do you suggest for sort of solo entrepreneurs or small business owners who need to figure out, their retirement plan?
Yeah, that's a tough one because, as you and I both know, as business owners, what do? Business owners tend to put their money back into their company. I get that. I mean, we're these optimists at heart, and that's a really good thing. It really is. The one thing that we see a lot, though, you need to be realistic about your business. And this goes for men, too. This is advice for anybody who's a business owner. We have a lot of women who fall into this category. You have to be realistic about what the prospects are, about what business you're in. Is it something that is really a hobby? Are you, I'm looking for the right words here. We see people who kind of are following their passion.
Mm-hmm.
But, I have a different view of that. I think your passion is what you become good at, how you can serve people. Not that it's something that you kind of enjoy doing that really maybe should be a hobby. And that's tough advice. That is really tough love right there.
And you give that advice when you see that the income is just not there for them to be able to live the quality of life they want to live and save for later.
Unfortunately, a lot of the folks we see in this position, they're maybe already in their late 60s. They've never really run a business. So it will be very, very hard for them to get the systems in place, the marketing. I mean, as you and I both know, marketing has gone online. You know, I guess you can walk around and do flyers for some things. It still works for some things. But, you know, marketing is a whole lot more sophisticated than it used to be. It's not sort of the case that maybe a person who has never run a business is all of a sudden, I mean, we've run across this. We run across a 75-year-old recently. We could not help her. And this was in her best interest for us not to help her. That she did not have the assets required, and she thought she was going to start her own business. And don't get me wrong, I wish her well. I wish her well. It sounds cold. It sounds really cold, like you couldn't help this 75-year-old. I couldn't. I really couldn't. It would have been worse if I had taken her money and invested it, because she's living off of it. So you can't take money, a small amount of money that you're living off of for the next 5 years and invest that. And it was a small amount. So I actually did her a favor by not working with her. And she had never run a business in her life. And in her case, honestly, probably getting some kind of job would have been, even at 75 years old, some kind of job. You can do it. There's people who do, and she's healthy. She would have been able to do that. I think the thing, though, is I think the biggest piece of advice is the younger you are, the better. And that's not great for the person who's sitting there at 75 that hasn't saved any money. But if you're 70 and you're healthy, think about it.
Yeah.
You know, the younger, the better.
So what about, say a 50 to 60-year-old who's got their own business and their income is, you know, enough that they want to start investing somewhere. What do you recommend for business owners? Because they don't have the traditional retirement account that a corporation would provide. So what do you recommend for that?
Yeah, there's a couple things you can do. There's a such thing as a solo 401k that you can invest in for yourself. There's what's called a simple IRA. You can do a SEP IRA, SEP, self-employed IRA. So there are options. There definitely are. And we work with some people who do this. We definitely work with business owners who are contributing to accounts like that are structured that way. I always recommend that because it's a forced savings. And if you go in there and try to dip in there and take your money, most of the time there's going to be a penalty. You're usually going to pay some taxes. So that right there, that sort of inhibits people from saying, oh, okay, that's my piggy bank. Now, there are people who do that, who go ahead and dip into their retirement accounts and take the penalty because they would rather do that because they're in such a pinch. But most of the time, it does sort of serve as a barrier to going in there and taking that. So I would advise that. I would advise if you are self-employed, do that simple IRA, or even a regular IRA. You could do that. Simple SEP. You know, there's a lot of different ways this can be structured depending on one's situation. Yeah. I would do that though. Absolutely stash a little bit away. Get started. Some is better than none.
Yeah, because that is also it helps you on your taxes, right? To contribute that. So it's better to get started than not. If you do have a company retirement plan, you should be putting in the max, especially if they're matching, right?
And even if they're not, just do it. It's a forced savings.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of talk these days about, oh, don't contribute to your 401k because the choices are bad. Some of the investments are expensive. Yeah, that's often true. And sometimes there's not a match. That's often true too. But you know what? Again, we're coming back to a behavioral issue. This is not a math issue. It's a behavioral issue. And the forced savings, you know, you'll be glad, even if your choices are crummy, even if they're expensive, even if your employer doesn't give a match, in 5 years from now, you're going to be like, oh, hey, look what I was able to save. That's going to be great.
Yeah. Okay. And so, Kate, your company is called Better Money Decisions. And the book that you're working on with your partner talks about some of the advice and decisions that are made based on bad advice. Yeah. So give us just a few sort of tips about how you would start making better money decisions.
Yeah, and we've covered some of them here, just the ones about definitely just save. That's actually the biggest piece of advice I give to people. Save.
Yeah.
Just save. Um, there's a lot of talk out there about finding firms exactly like ours, which are fee only, fiduciary. I mean, we don't get any commissions. We have the obligation to put the client's best interest first at all times, not just on retirement accounts, but at all times. That's an important distinction. I would advise that, but I really think behavior is the biggest piece of it, just from what I see. Yes, you want to find the right kind of advisor, but save money. Don't spend it. Don't dip into your retirement savings. The thing is, I just see too many people, and they can't become clients. Like the lady I gave you the example of before. She's not the only one I've met like that, who they get to be in their 70s and there's nothing there.
Yeah.
So there's this whole thing now that's also very, very dangerous about I'll just work till I drop. Nonsense. Nobody works till they drop.
Yeah.
That's just ridiculous. It's one thing if you're sitting there at 25, 35, 45, even 55 and saying, I feel great. I love what I do. I'll always want to work. I understand the desire to always make a contribution to society and always be productive on some level and always be engaged and making a difference. That's a really, really different proposition than saying, oh my gosh, I always need to work to keep a roof over my head and food on the table.
Okay, so let's talk about some of the behaviors because, people have challenges with saving. Mm-hmm. What are the biggest barriers for people in their behaviors, barriers to saving?
Justifying expenses, justifying stuff they want to buy. I had a talk with with someone about this recently. I would definitely argue that things like, yes, smartphones, internet access, yes, that's a necessity now. Okay. All of this talk about, oh, you don't need a smartphone. Get out of here. Of course you do. But I think, this idea of, well, I'm going to take this trip. I see people taking expensive trips all the time. And, as I've been growing my business, I ratcheted back the travel for a long time. And I get it. But, I hear this all the time. Oh, my niece is getting married at a resort and I have to go. It's like, really? Really? You do? Is she paying for you to go? No. Oh, okay.
Well, there's this sort of idea that I think Americans at least have become used to, which is that this sort of idea that everyone deserves to have this kind of luxury level of living.
Yep.
And it's very different from, say, our parents' or grandparents' lifestyle.
Mm-hmm. Wow, you just said the magic word there. You deserve it.
Yeah.
Boy, that phrase, you deserve it, is one of the marketers, like they see dollar signs. Cha-ching. That was a marketing phrase. You deserve it. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I would completely agree. Put that out in your mind. There's, I think you're right. Is that there's this idea that we shouldn't make any kind of sacrifices in the present moment, and again, people justify it all kinds of crazy ways. Like one of which is I'll work till I drop. The other one is I'll be dead by 70. No, the odds are you won't.
Right.
Actually, the odds are you will not. If you live in the United States right now, the odds are you will not be dead at 70. I hate to tell that to people, but so and more that this idea of longevity, I cannot emphasize it enough. And there's a lot of talk these days, about the health of programs like Social Security. Now, I do think for the boomer generation, the odds are you're going to be fine. But for maybe the younger Gen Xers, for the millennials, you might not be.
Yeah.
You might not be. So it's more imperative. I hate to say this. I mean, but you got to take care of yourself. And this is maybe not the message people want to hear, but I'm sorry, the government is not going to take care of you. That's not a political statement. It's just reality.
Right.
You know? Yeah.
Okay, Kate, I want to move into a segment called Superpowers for Success that we always end the show with. But first, a quick word from our sponsor. Being a well woman includes being financially healthy. Our sponsors, Lorraine L. and Kate Stalter of Better Money Decisions, are on a mission to eliminate complexity and confusion from your financial life. They replace Wall Street jargon with straightforward talk you can understand, and they create investment and retirement plans customized for your needs and your future. Download a free copy of their latest book, Don't Let Your Money Kick the Bucket Before You Do, and learn how to avoid the biggest mistakes women make when planning for retirement. Go to bettermoneydecisions.com/wellwoman and download your free book today. And I want to ask you the first question, which is, what does success in life mean for you?
Yeah, that always changes. I think right now it's really about just helping as many people as I can, spreading this good message that I think we have at this company, and just helping other people live successful lives. I just get a lot out of that right now.
Okay. And when did you know you were really good at what you do?
Yeah, it's been sort of an interesting journey. I started out actually as a business journalist and then became a financial journalist for many years. And, I knew I was pretty good at teaching people some of these very complex financial topics. And I wanted to be in a situation where I help people actually implement these ideas, kind of where the rubber meets the road, so to speak, not just kind of writing about it. And I'm still very good at that. And that's something I've known for quite a long time, that I'm pretty good at teaching people some of the complex topics. I mean, we really didn't get into much of that today. We were kind of taking the 30,000 foot view, but that is something that I've known for a while, and I wanted to be able to implement that in a more direct way.
And how did you know that that's what you wanted to do? I think that a lot of listeners are, trying to figure out maybe if they're on the right path, or if they're, what their calling could be. And I think that that's one of the signs, is that when you really, really feel like you're good at what you do, that's a big sign.
Yeah, again, I think it comes back to this question about following your passion. And I think a lot of people get themselves into trouble that way.
Right.
Yeah. I never kind of sat around and said, what's my calling, and waited for what my purpose was. It was really much more, I've always been driven much more practically than that. So, I enjoyed being a journalist, and I still write for Forbes. I write for U.S. News and World Report. I write for the Santa Fe New Mexican. I'm a columnist there. So I still do a lot of that, and I still enjoy it very much. But that industry was changing, and it still is. And I get in conversations all the time with people in journalism who are unfortunately really squeezed right now, because that industry is changing rapidly. It's unfortunate, but for me, I decided several years ago, I said, I'm going to need to keep reinventing myself. And I think that's kind of where I'm going with this, is keep reinventing yourself. We're in this era now where that's what all of us have to do, like it or not. And it doesn't mean you have to go from being, a writer to a bricklayer. I'm just making stuff up, if that's not what appeals to you.
Yeah.
But there's always a way to take the skills you have and transfer it to something else. I think I'm pretty good at that. I'm always reinventing myself. Even in this day, we're always reinventing our business. You have to.
Yeah.
You have to. You cannot be stagnant. So I think that's a big thing that has served me very well, is that I've always been willing to reinvent myself all along the way. I don't have a problem doing that.
And Kate, what is one personal habit that you do or have that contributes to your well-being?
I am pretty good, very good actually, about exercising regularly. I really, I think I've worked out every day this week. I think I was in gym clothes earlier when you and I first tried to talk. That is something, and that's one thing. It's just like, just make time. I get up early to make sure I do it. I know everybody's busy. I know it's one of those things that you could easily say, oh, I don't have time today. But you know what? I feel so much better when I do it. And I'm at the point now where I kind of regret the days. I kind of hate the days I don't get exercise. Yeah.
And so do you go to a gym or do you do it somewhere else?
Yeah, I enjoy going to a gym. I enjoy kind of being around other people because frankly, okay, in this sense, I don't have the discipline and the motivation to do this myself. I just don't.
So
I
you
like
go to
being
classes?
around.
You go to the gym to do classes or you just go and work out in the weights area?
Yeah, you know what I've discovered lately that I love is Orange Theory.
Oh, yes. I interviewed the owner of Orange Theory.
Yeah. I
awesome.
love what she's doing here.
Yeah.
Love that. I just really, really appreciate that. And I know that they say you want to go in there and not walk out feeling drained, but walk out feeling really good. And you do.
Yeah.
You do. So that's kind of my latest thing I've discovered, and I'm really enjoying that.
Oh, awesome. All right. What superpower did you discover you had only to realize it was there all the time?
Yeah, I think I was thinking about this particular question, and I think it really is the dealing directly with people and helping them. You know, being a journalist, you're an observer.
Mm-hmm.
It's great. It's a great role, and I kind of like that because you can go around, you can ask people a lot of questions, you can observe things. It gives you license to ask really nosy questions. What I kind of didn't know, though, is that I had this ability to really directly problem solve. And it didn't take too long to make that transition. So that's been a lot of fun to find that out.
Okay, cool. And what advice would you give your 25 or 30-year-old self?
Yeah, this question I always struggle with, and I'll tell you why. And I answer this in a little different way. I've got versions of this question before. I kind of don't look back and second guess my life. I just don't. Yeah. It is what it is. I'm where I am today. And, you know, I don't want to go back and say, oh, I could have done this. I could have done that. It's like, no, it is what it is, you know, and that's kind of how I approach that question.
Okay. And I get that. But is there a message that you, when you were 25 or 30, you think you would like to have heard?
It's going to be okay.
Yeah.
Stress less. I stress less today than I did when I was younger. You know, definitely much less anxious. So, yeah, I mean, you know, if there was anything, I look back, oh, gee, what were you worried about?
Yeah, totally.
Right.
Okay. And Kate, on the Well Woman Show, we often talk about the definition of feminism as as working towards economic, social, and political equality. Do you identify as a feminist?
Oh, in that sense, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And this comes up so much in our business.
Yeah,
I
was going to say.
Definitely. I mean, we just get, you know, there's so many situations where maybe a woman will bring her husband in because she's read my articles in the Santa Fe New Mexican. I'm pointing north right now.
Yeah.
So that's what that is. Where she's read my articles in the Santa Fe New Mexican and she brings her husband in and she's into it. If it were just, you know, if it was just the woman alone making the decision, she would work with us. But you could tell her husband, and usually these guys are not rude. They're usually not overtly, but you can tell there's something that they're like, they don't trust us. They don't want to work with women, even though women are proven to be better investors than men, by the way. So yeah, it's pretty discouraging. And my business partner, Lorraine, and I, we're on a mission to combat some of these ridiculous stereotypes. So that's one great example of, yes, where I do consider myself a feminist. Absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome. And just to wrap up, what are you reading right now? What's on your nightstand?
Okay. I have Michael Conley's newest mystery novel. I don't even remember the name of it. I just buy every book that Michael Conley writes. It's escapism. You know, it's I like to just relax sometimes with mysteries. And I know that's not deep. It's not literary fiction. I was an English major in college. I read a ton of literary fiction. And these days I either read business books for the most part, or just some kind of mystery novel to escape. And I'm not going to apologize for that. That is what it is.
No apologies. That's
Yeah.
right. What is your favorite business book?
Oh, wow. There are so many of them. I can give you a one I've read recently. It was by Michael Lewis, and I like his stuff. He's a very good writer. It was called The Undoing Project. And it came out, I think this year it was published, and it's about Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky. They're the Nobel Prize winning economists. And Kahneman is still alive, actually. Tversky passed away a few years ago. And they have looked at decision-making behaviors as they approach to all walks of life, really. So that's one that really stood out for me in the past year, that I've gotten an awful lot from that one, and kind of keep going back to that. I marked up a lot of pages in there, and I kind of keep going back to that. And I'm noticing that a lot of the business events I attend these days, I'm seeing examples from that book used over and over again. So it's really having quite an impact.
Okay, well, we'll link to those things in the show notes, and also we'll give people information about how to find you, because you actually provide your services all over the country. It's not just where you're located. So people may be listening to this podcast all over the country, and they can contact you. So we'll put that information in the show notes. And Kate, this has been such a pleasure. I'm so glad that you've been on the show today.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate you inviting me on. This has been fun.
That's it for our show today. Remember, if you need support to live your Well Woman life, head over to wellwomanlife.com/Facebook to join us. Our monthly live event, Well Woman Drinks, brings women together to share our successes and challenges as women, leaders, moms, aunts, sisters, and all the other roles we carry. If you'd like to attend a Well Woman Drinks near you, or if there isn't one in your city yet and you'd like to start one, email info@wellwomanlife.com. If you enjoyed the show, please take a moment and subscribe in iTunes and leave a review. This helps raise visibility, which is super helpful when it comes to producing the show every week. For feedback, comments, or just to let me know you were listening today, find me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram @WellWomanLife. I'm Giovanna Rossi for The Well Woman Show. Until next time, have a super powerful week.